Date to your potential, inspiring, educating, and empowering single members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Our hosts are Peggy Matheson, betrayal trauma recovery expert, and Sharon Collier, certified life and relationship coach.
Here we go. Another podcast on April Fool's Day.
Number 85.
Number 85.
Peggy actually looked up the history of April Fool's Day. I had no idea.
Okay, so this is from history.com in case you wanted to look it up, because there's a little bit more than what I'm going to share with you. But some historians speculate that April Fool's Day dates back to 1582. When France switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, as called for by the Council of Trent in 1563.
Wow.
In the Julian calendar, as in the Hindu calendar, the new year began with the spring equinox around April 1st.
Uh-huh.
So people who were slow to get the news or failed to recognize that the start of the new year had moved to January 1st and continued to celebrate it around April, and on March 1st of April became the butt of jokes and hoaxes and were called April Fools.
Wow.
And there it started. And there was stuff that happened in Rome, and there was stuff that happened later in the Northern Hemisphere, having to do with like the equinox and the calendar. And there was just, people would dress up and make fun of the people that they didn't like, that were like even magistrates, neighbors, or whatever. People would become the butt of jokes. So
yeah, I remember. Yeah, in the history, she was saying they were putting signs on each other's backs. Like, remember doing that in elementary school?
yeah, people would laugh behind your back and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sharon, how are we fools for love?
Well, I mean, love is a foolish, wonderful thing, right?
Yeah, such a powerful thing.
I asked Peggy earlier, I said, give me some ideas of like when you did something kind of foolish for love. And she's like, I got nothing. And I'm like, well, good for you, because I got a whole list.
I just listed a few things. But
I'm
going to share
Yes.
the very first one when I was in elementary school. And this isn't quite it's close enough, but anyway. So there was a boy that I kind of had a crush on, and we were on the playground. And for those of you who are listening to this for the first time and don't know, I'm a twin, and my sister's name is Penny. And so he came up to me like a foot away from me and just bounced from one foot to the other and went, Penny Peggy, Penny Peggy, Penny Peggy, Penny Peggy. And I was so flustered that I slapped him. So there, the first chemicals were going.
Attraction by slapping.
It didn't go anywhere.
Funny.
But
elementary school. Sorry to hear that, Peggy.
Yeah, maybe he didn't like being slapped.
I'm gonna guess. That rejection is harsh, even in elementary school.
I don't know. It was rejection as much. It was just a reaction of I didn't know what to do with him.
That's so funny because we do that when we are
we
crushing.
Get foolish.
We do. And it's really just a surge of our hormones and neurotransmitters. I mean, it really isn't foolish. Well, it is, but it's science. And
yes,
I love science.
Yes.
Let me put my smart glasses on for a minute.
Okay.
All these neurotransmitters and hormones make us feel good, right?
Yep.
They also
sure do
reduce depression and anxiety.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
They dull our fight and flight.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, because we've got so many good stuff that some of the things that make us nervous, which is funny because love makes us nervous.
Uh-huh.
But some of these neurotransmitters can dull this fight, flight, and fear response just because we're being overloaded with good chemicals. And of course, that gives us less stress. So, okay, we just talked about the fear. Things that can happen is we can get more courageous. So maybe you can think of something. You might try something new with someone. I went to, if anybody knows Six Flags Magic Mountain,
Yep.
in Valencia, Santa Clarita area in California.
Yep.
I went the cutest boy. This cute boy made me do a whole bunch of stuff that was just
He
really
made
dumb.
you do it.
He made me. The hormones made me do it. Anyways, we had kissed at this point, and I didn't know that kissing could be that good. I'm not sure that my feet were actually touching the ground most of the time I was with him. But I never went on roller coasters until high school. And so there's some pretty extreme roller coasters, and we went on pretty much all of them, and I was terrified the entire time, but I went.
Because you were with this boy.
Because
and
I
you
had
had
to
these
impress
hormones.
him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that'll be great. And actually, at the end of it all, I was glad I did. So, and then we might learn a few new things by trying new things. That's definitely not a bad thing. We can face our fears.
Get out of our comfort zone.
Get out of our comfort zone. This same particular boy, man, I was a fool for him. We went to a particular beach where the waves were rougher. And he's like, Zuma. Zuma was like the place everybody went. And he's like, have you been there? Zuma Beach. And I was like, I have been there. I had been there once before, years earlier. But of course I'd been to Zuma Beach because all the cool people were at Zuma. Anyways, I went out in the waves like I always do, not taking any regard for the fact that they were rougher. And let me tell you, I got hit with a good one and tumbled through the waves. He ended up coming in to getting me. And which wasn't a bad thing.
Whoa, I'm sitting there going, whoa, yeah, kind of worked out, right?
Kind of did work out. And he's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, yep, must have stumbled out there. So, yeah. And then fairly recently, I went out, well, not fairly recently, a couple of years ago, I went out with a guy and he's like, do you want me to come get you on my Harley? And I was like, yeah, I grew up on the back of a motorcycle because I had 4 brothers, but I grew up on the back of really small motorcycles, and we'd go through the backyard or through the hills in our neighborhood. Well, I didn't know that the Harley can go fast. We were going 90 miles an hour on the freeway. It was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. But I'm like, sure, let's just jump into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why we can say we're a fool for love. Okay. Or the potential of love, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Acting foolish or giddy. Okay. Love makes us giddy. Who doesn't, what ladies out there, who doesn't start laughing like,
That's right.
We start laughing in bubbles. I've seen people go from like Eeyore to Tigger. All of a sudden be really mellow to just really bouncy, or like introverts. I've watched introverts become so much more outgoing. It's like, oh my gosh, they're talking and talking a lot. I've never heard them talk so much, right? So this is another result of all our chemicals. Makes a lot of people act impulsive. Just do things spur of the moment or react in a way like maybe slap somebody. Right. But honestly, if somebody was in my face, like a foot away from me saying, Peggy Penny, Peggy Penny, I might have slapped them anyways.
Right.
I don't know. Anyways, and they can, of course, make us act silly and kind of regret it. And like Peggy's like, I haven't done this. And I'm like, you haven't done this.
I'm sure I have. I just can't remember.
This is stuff we suppress, but unfortunately, I'm like...
I mean, I know I've done this. I know I've overtalked. I know I've giggled a lot. I just can't remember specific times.
Yes, the excessive giggling, the running at the mouth. I went out on the dance floor and the guy goes, do what I do. And we were out there doing the stupidest things. And I felt so dumb afterward because pretty much everybody was laughing. And it was like, but he was so cute. And it was like, yeah, I'll do whatever. So yeah, we've all done silly things that we've regretted out of pure attraction for someone. So with this chemical, a couple more things. It also, on the flip side, it makes us so it's hard to focus as I stumble over my words. Maybe like hard to focus like on our job or at school, families, friends, hobbies.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's just really hard to maintain because pretty much your brain is full of thinking of this person with all of the lovely hormones that we have going on and chemicals. But we love those, right? Mm-hmm. But we also know that doing things out of love, out of this chemical response, with no regard for logic or consequences, is actually the same thing as doing things out of fear, jealousy, or hate.
Wow.
All are strong emotions, yes, because it's just our emotional response taking over. There's no logic involved. So love and hate are the same in that regard, when our emotions take over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. Because we know, acting out of just purely emotions is how we make bad decisions, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to talk about some of the different phases of love that really aren't real. We have, I call it the dreamy expectations phase. The
Love that term.
fantasy stage. This is when we daydream, when we conjure up an image of a relationship in our head, even when we talk to a guy that we're dating or a girl that we're dating and making plans for the future, we start producing dopamine. This is our anticipation hormone, as well as our attachment hormone. And there's a whole bunch of other great things dopamine does, but in regards to love. So we start conjuring up this relationship in our head, maybe even before we're in a relationship. And maybe this is based on just being new to the dating scene again, like after a divorce or widowhood, or maybe this is based on a past relationship, but we start conjuring up the perfect relationship in our head, right?
Right.
Which can be bad for a couple reasons, because when you find somebody that may be close to this fantasy, not reality, the fantasy will jump into the relationship not being in reality. We're jumping into it, even though maybe they're not a good match, maybe they're not good for us at all, but yet they match up with some of these fantasy things that we're doing. So we need to be careful with that. We need to not attach ourselves to ideas.
Are you saying that we're not thinking clearly?
We are not thinking clearly through
Or
any
we're
of
not
this.
using our thinking brain?
We are not using our thinking brain. And that's hard. That's hard when you have this flood of emotions to
yeah.
stop and say, okay, let's do logic now.
It is a challenge. It's a skill,
it is.
actually.
It is. And it's something we need to
to
work on. We're
build
going to
it.
talk about that later. The other part of our dreamy expectations that we need to avoid this stage is nobody's going to meet up to the fantasy. We have this idea in our head, or this, it is a fantasy. It's imaginative. What's the word?
It's our imagination.
It's our imagination. It's very imaginative. It's an imaginative story. And so we need to be careful to not do this as well, because we want to be real and we want someone real and not just this fantasy. So the next phase is our rose-colored glasses phase, which is also called what, Peggy?
The infatuation phase.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, our rose-colored glasses phase. This is when we are purely running on emotions. Okay, this is the beginning of the relationship, and we are really fools at this stage. We all know.
You can't miss the stage. You can't skip it. Is that what we're saying? We're fools. We're all going to be fools at some point.
Rose-colored glasses is not an exaggeration. There will be problems in there that we just completely overlook because of the surge of hormones and chemicals. And we all know, because we've all listened to the podcast, our infatuation stage is about 4 to 5 months, where the chemicals will then kind of start to subside. But in this period, of course, it feels like love. It's very exciting. But our emotions really are unreliable because they're telling us things that really aren't true. We're masking problems. We're moving forward in a relationship that really is
imagining things.
Yes, things that aren't there. And this is also where impulsive things are happening because we are so taken over by chemicals. So it's super important to make it past this phase. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Because a lot of people say, oh, I could see the problems, all these problems started coming up. And it's like, well, could you see them along the way? And it's like, well, yeah, now I can.
Right.
They were there the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so it's super important that we recognize that this is a phase. Infatuation isn't bad. Being excited about somebody isn't bad.
It's fun.
As long as we're not staying there in a bad situation, right? As long as
Right.
that after this period goes that we're we're getting real with the relationship. And
Yeah, we access our intelligence
Yes,
and
and our
our
logic.
thinking mind. It's
Yes.
all intelligence, but our thinking mind as well.
yes. Okay, so the next phase is the attachment. The attachment phase that we get into when we are fools for love. This is our oxytocin and dopamine. This happens when we are loving on someone, when we're kissing and hugging and holding hands and all of those yummy, touchy things. And this, again, did I say oxytocin and dopamine already?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. This is also what we produce dopamine and we get attached just getting comfortable with somebody when we're extremely comfortable and spend a long time with them. Some people stay in relationships because it just kind of makes sense and they just stay in there a really, really, really long time. But when you're hanging in there too long, a lot of people do this, and there's all sorts of reasons, and I just want to talk about some of them in case this identifies, because most people, when they're hanging in there too long, know this, and they just don't want to face reality. We're still producing chemicals. The chemicals are still good. We can just get more real after the infatuation period. So when we're attached to somebody, a lot of times it looks like we have someone, so we don't want to rock the boat. Having someone is better than not having somebody. So it's like, let's just not rock that boat.
Yeah.
And, you know it's not working, but the thought of not being with them is crushing you. You're in the love bubble and you don't want to get out of the love bubble. Sometimes there's just really bad patterns that are familiar to us, and we stay in that relationship just because it's just really familiar. And that's when, that's often abusive situations, and it's not good, but familiar. And so, this is why we need to keep our heads on straight, right?
Yeah.
We think someone this good might not come along again. And so we're hanging in there.
That's hard.
Yeah, they match your social class or status. Sometimes when you're not dating someone who does that or dating people and you find somebody, it's like, oh, like we're hanging in there because of this, right? We attach ourselves to their potential.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Never, ever, ever date someone's potential. Everybody's got potential, but not everybody wants to see it or work on it.
Correct.
And that's the difference. I've talked about, and it's been mostly women throughout my coaching career that will reach out and think I have some magic spell for their abusive boyfriends. And they'll tell me, this man has so much potential. And I'm like, when do you ever see that?
Right.
When are they in therapy? Well, no. Are they in school? Well, no.
Are
and
they
doing
what they need to do?
They're not moving
to build?
forward. Yeah, any way in life at all. And this woman is stuck in this situation. And it's like, no, it's time to get out of this relationship. And once again, they're in the love bubble and don't want to. Mm-hmm. It's like having this is better than not having it, but never, ever, ever date somebody's potential. Okay. Or they start chasing this person's approval. So this is the lows and highs. When you are in a relationship and you don't have the approval of somebody, you're in like a low, an emotional low, but then when you get their approval, you go from a low to a high. So this extreme jump in your emotions actually can be addictive. And so these are the drama relationships, where it's just constantly drama because the lows to highs become so thrilling that you start craving the lows to the highs. So, some remedies for being a fool in love.
Remedies.
Let's get real. Get your hormone education, which you just did today. But recognize, we just said that it's really hard to get out of the chemicals and get into our logic and into our thinking brain. But if we can start recognizing what's really going on in our bodies, a lot of times that makes it easier. We can get out of that abusive relationship. We shouldn't be putting up with somebody who doesn't respect us or support us, right?
Right.
Or somebody who assaults us even verbally,
Right.
let alone physically. Someone you're meh about, like, let's stay away from relationships like that, even if the chemicals are nice. We really need to worry less about the happily ever after and focus on the here and now. Try to stay in the here and now with the relationship, because of course it gets exciting. And what do? We're going to build a house together in Malibu.
Yeah.
That's a great fantasy.
Yeah.
On the beach.
Yeah.
We can combine our incomes and the houses we have, and you start daydreaming and getting into that.
It's interesting how we want to fool ourselves.
Yes.
It's interesting how we want to create a dream. And like you said, it helps to cover up the pain of the past or
Yes.
trauma. And so we're going to put a little plug in here. This is why you want to do your healing work before you start dating, because it makes it that
Yes.
much harder when this stuff hits, when all the chemicals and hormones hit. It makes it that much harder. But we fool ourselves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-fooling going on.
Yeah. But in the process, we're producing hormones that feel good.
That's right.
It's kind of,
Temporary stuff.
It is temporary stuff. Okay, moving on. We need to recognize that in every relationship we get into, we are either going to get married or break up, or have a committed relationship or break up, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are like, devastated at this breakup. We need to know that we're at risk of that every single time. This is part of being real and not foolish, right? It's like
Right.
the relationship can only go two different ways.
Right.
There's no backing up and getting out of it. It's two directions. So keep that in mind. So for a relationship to survive, it does need to move past this jumble of hormones and chemicals, right? We need to get into the after infatuation stage. We need to get into a stable and consistent phase where we can use our logic,
Right.
and really recognize what's going on.
Yeah. And see the other person for who they are in the present time.
Yes. It is really easy when somebody is very good looking, when they're a good kisser, when they have all your hormones going, or somebody's your ideal as far as looks go, to really get caught up into the false presentation of what
that can be a big trap.
relationship is.
Because we live in a world that's so visual now.
Yes.
And there's so much about looking good, and I mean, movies. That's what the actors. Even the ones that are like goofy or maybe supposedly unattractive are still cute.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Still nice
So
looking. Yeah.
still nice looking. They're still appealing, and so we live in a world that's so based in that. It's easy to be fooled.
Yes, it really is. Lastly, I found a quote on Facebook, so it must be true. If you want the relationship of your dreams, you have to say no to everything that is not.
That's right.
You need to say no to relationships that aren't for you and not be fooled by love.
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage.
Courage is big in our journey, isn't it?
Yes, it is big. I mean, it's big in everybody's journey, but particularly when you're talking about a relationship that's going to, most of us are looking for a permanent relationship.
Yeah.
When you're talking about living your life with someone, the stakes feel very high. So yeah, it takes a lot of courage and and strength within yourself to acknowledge these phases, to look at the
Yes.
ways we fool ourselves, to look at and just acknowledge the fun part of it too.
Oh,
and be
yes.
with the fun part of it, but don't make any decisions while you're in that crazy, funny, wild phase where you slap somebody.
Right.
Or you go doing Zuma Beach when
Yes.
when you're not really ready for it. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Sharon. This has been really fun. So, guys, don't be a fool.
Right.
Just go through those moments of being a fool for love and make sure you move through them.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it inspired you on your dating journey. Please share this with anyone you think might benefit from what you've heard today and click the button to follow us. You can reach either Sharon or I at datetoyourpotential.com. We work with people who are single or married. We want you to know you are not alone. We support you. We are in this with you.